Imagine building the most powerful engine the world had ever seen, only to have it banned before it ever touched the racetrack. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's real, it's brutal, and it changed the future of American racing forever. Today, we're uncovering the untold story behind Ford's forbidden 427 V8, an engineering masterpiece so dangerous, so ahead of its time, NASCAR said, "No way," before it even had a chance to roar. But why? Was Ford too ambitious? Or was there something deeper? Something political, something they didn't want you to know? Buckle up, because what you're about to learn about the legendary Cammer will change how you see muscle cars, racing history, and even Ford itself. This is the story of genius, betrayal, and how a banned engine still found a way to conquer the world. Let's dive in. The year was 1964. Ford Motor Company stood at the top of the American automotive world, selling cars by the millions, dominating the streets and fighting hard to rule the racetrack. But then came the punch they didn't see coming. At the Daytona 500, Chrysler unleashed the 426 Hemi, a mechanical monster that left everyone else in the dust. Richard Petty, behind the wheel of a Plymouth powered by the new Hemi, crushed the competition, lapping the entire field. It wasn't just a victory, it was a humiliation for Ford. And Henry Ford II? He took it personally. Inside Ford's racing division, the message was clear: we will not be outgunned. In a desperate race against time, Ford's top engineers, some of the brightest minds in Detroit, were given a brutal challenge. You have 90 days to build an engine that will crush Chrysler. No excuses, no failures. And so the 427 project was born under extreme pressure, fueled by pride, competition, and a burning need for revenge. But Ford didn't want to just match the Hemi. They wanted to obliterate it. Instead of sticking to traditional designs, they took a bold step, creating a new overhead camshaft engine, something radical and futuristic compared to the old pushrod engines dominating NASCAR. The goal: higher RPMs, faster throttle response, and the ability to breathe like no V8 had ever breathed before. Ford engineers ripped apart the proven 427 FE block and rebuilt it from the inside out. They fitted it with hemispherical combustion chambers, massive valves, and a gigantic 6-foot-long timing chain to drive twin overhead cams. On paper, it was a beast, lighter, faster, and capable of producing 600-plus horsepower right out of the gate. This was no small gamble. This was Ford betting the future of its racing program on a wild, aggressive idea. And the stakes: nothing less than their honor, their pride, and their standing in American motorsports. Failure wasn't an option, because in 1960s America, cars were culture, and culture was war. Every racetrack, every showroom was a battlefield, a place where reputations were made and empires could crumble overnight. NASCAR at that time wasn't just racing, it was marketing. Winning on Sunday meant selling on Monday. If Ford couldn't beat the Hemi on the track, they risked losing market share, prestige, and maybe even their place at the top of America's automotive pyramid. The Cammer wasn't just about horsepower. It was about sending a message to Chrysler, to the fans, to the entire industry. Ford was still the future. The engine came together in just 90 days, a furious, almost impossible sprint, earning it the nickname the 90-Day Wonder. It was ready, it was vicious, and it was going to change everything, or so they thought. Because as Ford prepared to unleash their secret weapon on NASCAR, a shocking decision was about to crash their party and rewrite racing history forever. On paper, the Ford 427 Cammer looked unstoppable. An overhead cam V8, monstrous displacement, hemispherical combustion chambers. It was a dream engine built for pure domination. But hidden inside this beast were some ticking time bombs. At the heart of the Cammer's radical design was that 6-foot-long timing chain, a mechanical snake. That had the tough job of synchronizing the twin overhead cams. At low speeds, it was fine. At high RPMs, it was a gamble. The chain was so long it could flex, stretch, or even whip inside the engine at extreme revs. One small misalignment could cause catastrophic timing issues, bent valves, lost races, or worse, a totaled engine. In a world where every millisecond counted, That was a risk Ford couldn't afford. But Ford's engineers weren't just dreamers. They were problem solvers. They added tensioners and guides to control the chain's movement. They reinforced parts with racing-grade materials. They even designed the engine's heads to breathe better than anything Chrysler could throw at them. In dyno tests, the results were staggering. Over 600 horsepower with a single 4-barrel carburetor. Over 650 horsepower with dual 4-barrel setups. And when pushed by hardcore tuners in later years, some Cammers roared past 800 horsepower, naturally aspirated. In a straight line, the 427 Cammer was an absolute monster. It didn't just make power, it made history. Yet, behind closed doors, even Ford knew the Cammer wasn't perfect. It was complex. It was delicate compared to the rugged simplicity of the Hemi. And for the average NASCAR pit crew of the 1960s, used to quick fixes and simple engines, the Cammer was intimidating. It was a marvel of engineering. But it came at a cost. Maintenance nightmares, tuning challenges, and a steep learning curve for anyone trying to unleash its full potential. Some called it a glimpse of the future. Others whispered it was too clever. For its own good. In the end, the Cammer was both brilliance and blunder. A mechanical work of art trapped by the brutal realities of racing. It showed what Ford was capable of. But it also showed that being too advanced, too fast, can sometimes backfire when the world isn't ready. And Ford was about to learn that lesson the hard way, because just as the Cammer prepared to make its thunderous NASCAR debut, the rulemakers struck it down with a single devastating blow. As the 1965 NASCAR season approached, Ford was ready. The 427 Cammer had been tested, tuned, and primed for battle. This was supposed to be Ford's redemption, their answer to the Hemi's humiliation. Dealerships were buzzing. Ford executives were giddy, and race teams were prepping their cars to unleash the monster. But then, just weeks before the Cammer was set to debut, NASCAR dropped a bombshell. Bill France, the iron-fisted president of NASCAR, announced a sudden rule change. Overhead camshaft engines are banned from competition. Just like that, with a stroke of a pen, Ford's 90-day miracle was dead on arrival. The official excuse? NASCAR claimed the Cammer's advanced technology would create an unfair advantage, sparking an expensive arms race that would push smaller teams out of the sport. The spirit of NASCAR, they said, was about accessible racing, not high-tech warfare. But behind closed doors, many believed something else was happening. Some whispered that Chrysler, fearing Ford's comeback, had quietly lobbied France to protect their Hemi's dominance. Others argued that France simply didn't want NASCAR to become a playground for exotic, high-cost engines that the average fan could never dream of owning. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. Ford was furious. After investing millions into the Cammer's development, after burning the midnight oil for 3 straight months, after creating what many called the greatest racing engine America had ever seen, they weren't even going to get a chance to compete. Executives slammed doors, engineers cursed their bad luck, race teams, left holding brand new Cammers, scrambled to find a plan B. The timing couldn't have been worse. Ford had pinned their entire racing strategy on this engine, and now NASCAR had ripped the rug out from underneath them. It was a crushing blow, not just to Ford's racing hopes, but to their pride. In the blink of an eye, the 427 Cammer became a legend, not for what it achieved, but for what it could have achieved. Still, if you thought Ford was about to give up, you don't know Ford. They had a few tricks left up their sleeve, and they were about to turn the Cammer into a new kind of weapon, in a battlefield even wilder than NASCAR. With NASCAR off the table, Ford faced a brutal choice. Scrap the 427, Cammer entirely, or find a new battlefield where rules didn't hold them back. They chose war and took their forbidden engine straight to the wild, untamed world of drag racing. In the 1960s, drag strips across America were exploding with popularity. Here, brute force mattered more than politics. Innovation was celebrated, not banned, and the 427 Cammer was about to become a superstar. Ford partnered with some of the boldest racers in the business, legends like Connie Kalitta, Dyno, Don Nicholson, and Ed Pink. They dropped Cammers into lightweight Mustangs. Fairlanes and specialty dragsters built purely for speed. The results were explosive. Cammers screamed down quarter-mile tracks, shattering records and terrifying the competition. Unlike NASCAR's cautious rulebook, the drag racing scene welcomed Ford's exotic design. The massive horsepower, high revving capability, and aggressive valve timing of the Cammer gave racers an overwhelming edge. By 1965, Connie Kalitta had blasted past the unthinkable, becoming the first driver to break the 200 mph barrier in a top-fuel dragster powered by the 427, milestone that sent shockwaves through the racing world. Other racers followed, tuning, tweaking, and pushing the Cammer to new limits. With heavy modifications, some Cammers cranked out over 2,500 horsepower, numbers that would have sounded like science fiction just a few years earlier. And it wasn't just about raw speed. The Cammer earned a reputation for brutal durability once its timing issues were ironed out with clever modifications like gear drive setups instead of long chains. Drag racing gave the Cammer a second life, a life without restriction, without apology. It transformed from a banned underdog into one of the most feared and respected engines in motorsport. The irony: by trying to stop Ford in NASCAR, Bill France had accidentally unleashed the 427 onto a much wilder stage. And in the world of drag strips and burnouts, the Cammer wasn't just competitive, it was a legend in the making. Ford's forbidden engine didn't just survive, it thrived, and its roar would echo across American racing history for decades to come. Today, the Ford 427 Cammer is more than just a legend, it's a unicorn. In a world where every gearhead knows the word Hemi, the Cammer remains a secret badge of honor among true enthusiasts, the forbidden engine that nearly rewrote American motorsports history. But few realize just how rare and how influential the Cammer really became. First, the numbers. Only a few hundred 427 SOHC engines were ever produced. Most were scooped up by drag racers, collectors, and a handful of lucky hot rodders who knew exactly what kind of monster they were getting their hands on. Today, finding an original 427 Cammer is like finding buried treasure. Rebuilt Cammers routinely sell for over $60,000, and in 2023, an ultra-rare, never-installed original engine sold for a jaw-dropping $140,000 at auction. But it's not just about the money, it's about what the Cammer represents. This was Ford's first bold step into the world of overhead camshaft technology, a move that would influence their future high-performance engines for decades. Today's Ford Coyote V8s. Their DNA traces straight back to the Cammer's revolutionary design philosophy. High-revving overhead cam, big power in a compact package. The Cammer also left its fingerprints all over racing culture. It powered some of the most iconic drag cars of the late 60s and early 70s, monsters like Mickey Thompson's Mach 1 Mustangs, Connie Kalitta's Bounty Hunter, and the infamous Malco Gasser 1933, Willys Coupe. These cars didn't just win races. They redefined what was possible on the strip and helped build the mythos around Ford as a true innovator in motorsports. Yet somehow the Cammer remains a whispered legend, less mainstream than the Hemi, less commercialized than the LS Motors of today, but in many ways even more hardcore. Why? Because it was banned, because it was dangerous, because it was pure, unfiltered ambition, the kind of wild idea that corporate America usually buries under boardroom politics. And that's exactly why true gearheads revere it to this day. The 427 Cammer isn't just an engine. It's a symbol of what happens when engineers are set free to chase greatness, no matter the consequences. Its roar may have been silenced in NASCAR, but its spirit, heard still burning rubber in the hearts of racers everywhere. The Ford 427 Cammer wasn't just an engine. It was a revolution, one that came too soon for the rules, but just in time for the dreamers, banned before it could dominate, resurrected, to shatter drag strips, and immortalized as one of the greatest what-if stories in racing history. In a world full of legends, the Cammer stands alone, not for what it won, but for what it dared to be. If you loved uncovering the untold story behind Ford's forbidden monster, smash that like button, subscribe for more incredible car history, and drop a comment telling us your favorite racing legend. See you in the next one. Next.